What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with your afternoon snap, and today we're going to be taking a look at the grand finals from this season of the Snap Wars League. Unfortunately, I did not personally make the grand finals this season. Last season I won it, but this season I was eliminated in the semifinals by Bear here. And we're going to be watching from their perspective for these matches. Bear is going to be playing up against Roy, the winner of 2 seasons ago's grand finals. Roy has made the grand finals again this season after winning the Premier League, and they are going to play 3 conquest matches. Closed deck list, they're allowed to switch decks in between the matches here, though I will say, I do believe Bear is going to be playing Victoria Hand Werewolf by Night for all 3 of these matches. That is the only thing I'm spoiled on, the deck list that these players are going to be using. I don't know who wins any of these matches, so I am watching it live here, but I can tell you that Roy is playing an Invisible Woman First Steps tech deck. This deck has been pretty popular recently, playing the Thing First Steps and Juggernaut to help you close out locations, and then Invisible Woman First Steps as sort of a points package. Both players have opened up on Merlin here, which is going to give both players a lot of agency. I think that Merlin is a card that a lot of top players flock to just because all of those skills give you so much agency around the locations that you're going to see and let you clear up cards that you don't want. Quantum Tunnel is also going to mean that both players have access to a lot of their decks right now. We see Invisible Woman First Steps come down here from Roy, and an Iron Patriot comes down from Bear. Iron Patriot, despite the fact that Bear will be playing the same deck through all of these matches, and this is closed deck list, the players are allowed to change their decks at any time, and they don't know each other's decks, at least right now. But the Iron Patriot will definitely keep Roy guessing. A Lady Deathstrike to take out Merlin could be fairly useful, though playing it into Quantum Tunnel might not be. But playing other cards into Quantum Tunnel to try to grab a discount onto the Lady Deathstrike could prove to be useful. It already has a little bit of a discount from that Quinjet. Trying to figure out how to spend that remaining energy. It looks like Bear is going to once and future their Quinjet for some additional energy next turn. And we are going to see Roy also battle for the Iron Patriot location here. Leech not going to find any targets out of Roy's deck, and Mirage is going to find a 1/5 Ghost Spider. We do see Vicky Hand show up, but without Bastion, Frigga is not going to be able to copy that Vicky Hand, so it will be a one-handed game here for Bear. That center location is going to change, and Thena is going to come down into the clubhouse, which is actually a little too slow. So the way that Iron Patriot works with end of turn cards, because it was played before Thena, it saw that the clubhouse was winning before Thena grew to be 3 power. Now, Bear could use Lady Deathstrike to take out Thena here, but then they lose their Vicky Hand, the card that their deck is entirely built around. So I'm not sure that really makes sense either. And Spider Island is a location that either player could actually feasibly win with their Ghost Spider. So a little bit of intrigue there as well. And it looks like we're going to see Bear play a Misery plus an Iron Patriot and an Omniversal Presence this turn to turn off the Vault, using that extra energy from their Once and Future skill last turn. For Roy, I don't really know exactly what Roy's looking to do here. All right, Hydra Bob plus Mobius. No Prodigy in this deck. It's really just a bunch of tech, but Mobius and then Elysium flips up. That has got to be great for Roy. I think Roy would potentially snap here if it wasn't a final turn boomer snap, but the fact that they have now a free Ghost Spider, they actually don't even need the Ghost Spider here, if we're being honest. They can just fill up all of these locations probably. That will mean that Thena is not getting a buff though, so that is a little curious. And then Bear could also try to Juggernaut Roy out of Spider Island. If they just play Juggernaut plus Ghost Spider into Spider Island, they will pull back like a Nico Minoru to win that location while preventing Roy's Ghost Spider from winning it. I think they might wind up sequencing this a little bit different in just a moment, going Juggernaut into Nico into Ghost Spider, and then having Juggernaut and Ghost Spider join somewhere in Clubhouse. Ooh, if they can fill the Clubhouse eventually, that could be kind of cool. They're going to realize in a moment the sequencing here and play Nico before they play the Juggernaut or the Ghost Spider, I do have to imagine. They could also go for a polymorph. It would be a polymorph on Vicky Hand or on Iron Patriot, and you can use the polymorph to prevent cards. Oh, okay, we're actually just going to see a retreat. I think that that's actually probably a heads-up play, to be totally honest, because your opponent does still have Mobius, and as much as Roy might only want to play 2 cards for Thena, I think that it's just going to be too sweet to play your free Ghost Spider and your free Havoc or whatever you have, while also filling a location with the Thing for steps. Quinjet into Onslaught Citadel, I mean, even just Onslaught Citadel itself could potentially spell a snap for Bear. That's a really good location for Vicky if we see the Vicky come down, but I mean, I guess maybe you wait to see if your opponent has Merlin. Now that Bear's drawn that, I'm kind of remembering, yeah, Merlin might not be something that you want to snap into just on a locations basis, especially with not having the Victoria hand yet. Looks like Bear has gone for the turn 2 Iron Patriot. Will they go for the turn 3? Yeah, that's going to be Merlin, just to get as much value out of that as possible as quickly as we can here. So now we can see Werewolf plus a skill next turn, potentially to get rid of this, the Hood. Bear does win the Iron Patriot battle, but Mobius wins the war, preventing that discount from taking place. We do see a polymorph as a potential option for the Hood here, or we could just see a Misery into the Kiln. No, we are going to see a full fill of the Kiln with polymorph plus an 8-power demon and a Victoria hand. This Werewolf by Night is sticking around in hand for a while, so it's not going to get that much use. Ooh, might decide to put some points into Stark Industries. This is also playing Vicky Hand not in the Citadel. You probably do want to play Vicky Hand second in case you draw a Frigga, or potentially interested in Frigga-ing the Demon, should that be a card off the top. But yeah, Vicky Hand in the Citadel is worth almost as much as playing Vicky Hand in the Kiln, because you get an extra 2 points out of it there regardless. A snap comes down from Bear, and they are going to reconfigure this hand, so now Frigga can copy Victoria Hand, and they are battling for the Kiln with a bunch of points that is going to cause Roy to have to retreat. Makes sense to me. I think that if I am Bear here, I probably know most of Roy's deck at this point. That is an important point to bring up. I haven't been fully paying attention to everything that Bear has played. I think that Bear actually has a few more unknown cards because of the fact that Werewolf by Night isn't always a card that will get played in these lists, and Juggernaut is like potentially a card that doesn't always get played. We're going to see the Hood come down and meet a Hydra Bob into the Miniaturized Lab. Project Pegasus as our second location. This could be really, really good. This extra energy could allow some cool plays with Frigga and Misery. I think you might want to change that order up a little bit. Play Iron Patriot and then Victoria Hand and then Frigga to allow you to Frigga another Victoria Hand on a future turn. Actually, it works out fine regardless. Next turn you play Victoria Hand, and then the following turn, oh, this is really good. This is really good. I think you actually snap to this even. Okay, decided not to snap. Stardust is going to come down from Roy. That really does not do anything that I can see. Yeah, it doesn't do anything against the cards currently in Bear's deck. Could do something against this Iron Patriot card. No? Okay, so that is going to be a pretty vanilla 4-6, but Roy gets to spend their energy appropriately and gets that Merlin out there so that way they can start to get some value out of that. So I think what you do now is play Vicky hand this turn, and next turn you Misery the Frigga and grab another Victoria hand, and that is going to be enough to snap, especially when Sacred Timeline could allow you to grab another Victoria hand, assuming that was one of the cards in Bear's starting hand. That UI isn't there yet. They added that UI to Moira X, but not Sacred Timeline yet. That's something that I'm definitely hoping they will do. Maybe it's just like information overload and they don't want to do UI for just this random location. All right, and it's gone. So we don't have to worry about that. We do see a Shuri's Lab, so Bear will be able to pick up a 6-power Victoria hand off that Shuri's Lab, and it will really be at least a 12-power Victoria hand. Shuri's Lab is gonna go pretty good there. Ooh, Juggernaut. Yeah, Bear, I think, has got to be taking this one. Hydra Bob moves over into the lab. Roy's going to need to snap just to move that out, but Thena is not a great card in the lab. I do feel like Bear has got this one. Now, predictions on this match overall, honestly, it doesn't feel like Roy's tech is super useful in this matchup. Like, Mobius can stop Quinjet, sure, but otherwise, not really stopping much of what Bear has got going on here. Not going to stop them from grabbing a 1-12 Victoria hand. Okay, you can. Now it's a 2-12 Victoria hand. Even bigger if you decide to play it into the lab. I don't really think you need to. You have got Juggernaut for the lab, you've got Negasonic for the lab, and you just have a Demon, which is not... So the numbers are a little bit confusing, but the Demon has 6 power on it, and then +4 from Vicky hand. Shuri's Lab will only double the 6. So it will go from 6 to 12, +4, plus probably another 2 when that second Vicky hand comes down. So still, we're looking at a 118 Demon here, and 2 of them from Misery plus the Hood. I think you got to feel pretty good about that if you are Bear right now. The only trick is curving out efficiently and trying to maintain priority, but I think the best way to do that is with, okay, I would have said play Negasonic plus one of your 1-cost cards this turn, and then next turn, oh, but then you never play both of your demons. It's fine. You'll figure it out. Play Negasonic, grab Prio here by playing a demon, and then next turn, your opponent won't probably be able to play into Shuri's Lab, and you can just win the game with Victoria hand plus a second demon in any other location. Looks like actually, without knowing the full contents of Roy's deck, Bear is opting to toss priority here, and why not play that second demon though? I guess just because you never need to, you can always just play it next turn. We are going to see Bear run out of time. That's going to lock them into this play. Roy just has a Black Cat, though. I don't think that this is anything to be afraid of. Merlin's going to pick up another spell for Roy. That could spell the end for Shuri's Lab, but then that would be the final card Roy gets to play this turn. Juggernaut will kind of always win the Shuri's Lab, though Roy could have a Juggernaut of his own. And then Demon to just go way over the top in Project Pegasus, or do you Demon in Mini Lab to battle for all 3 locations? I'm struggling to feel like it matters, to be totally honest. But Juggernaut is the only play, and it won't win Mini Lab unless you play it alongside a Demon. Sure, Roy's just going to wind up retreating. Bear grabs 2 cubes, and that's all she wrote. I figured that's what this match would eventually, or this game rather, would eventually lead to, but that is going to lead us into round 4, not quite high stakes mode, but we will see that Bear has the Victoria in hand. That's looking good. Plus Mirage. I was going to say you don't want Mirage to copy Black Cat, but that's probably never happening because that would mean that Roy has held onto Black Cat. So Mirage could copy Hydra Bob or Ghost Spider like it did in the first game. Both of those are good. We're not going to see what that copies just yet, though, as we do have Frigga, so we get to curve out with the Frigga into a second copy of Victoria Hand, trying to curve out with that as soon as possible. If Nico is the copy a card mode this turn, could get a little bit awkward, but we don't see that. So we are going to see potentially 3 Victoria Hands this match. Invisible Woman going to move into Asteroid M. Bear just plays their Frigga into Asteroid M, not even going to bother with making it move, just going to send it there to begin with. Looks good. Do we see the copy card off Nico? Not yet. We do see Misery on Asteroid M, though. And honestly, I think that could be the play. Bear's looking potentially to curve out with Mirage plus Vicky. That will mean that they cannot use Nico to copy Vicky. Now, oh, you don't even need it. It's the same play as the previous game. You play Vicky, and then you Misery your Frigga, and it creates another copy of your Vicky for you to play on the final turn regardless. Don't have to worry about the random spells from Nico. You're just going to make it happen, and you're also going to have an 11 power Ghost Spider alongside that. You could use Nico to make a copy of Misery. Sure. Oh, no, you can't do that because then you wouldn't grab a... you wouldn't grab another copy of Vicky Hand. So you just play a demon into the sewer system that dodges Shang-Chi if your opponent potentially has it. And that is going to be a snap from Bear. Roy snaps back. That is an interesting snap back. What tech could Roy potentially have? I mean, this has got to be a Juggernaut play here from Roy. Oh, it's a Juggernaut right now to stop the Misery, sending that into Nidavellir. Not going to be anything huge. The Misery does go back into Asteroid M, and that is why Roy has snapped. Kind of some interesting snaps regarding Hydra Bob, but they've snapped because they have already won Asteroid M. I thought about Juggernaut. I mean, Juggernaut's like the best card in Roy's deck, so it makes sense that that was the reason for the snap. The Misery can get pulled into Nidavellir. I love that. Does Bear have a way to also win one of these other 2 locations? I almost feel like you have to pull the Misery into Sewer System and then just play some small cards into Nidavellir. Fill up Nidavellir with a Werewolf by Night plus an Iron Patriot that moves the Werewolf by Night. I think that is Bear's best play. So it would be Ghost Spider in Sewer System, Werewolf in Sewer System, and then the Werewolf will move into Asteroid M, but then you move it back into Nidavellir with an Iron Patriot. And with 4 cards in Nidavellir, I would think that Roy actually has a reasonable shot. Let's see if they come up with this play. It looks like a good one to me. Briefly, I thought about that too. They are going... No, that's not going to work. That's not going to win you the game. You have to switch those 2 cards because the Werewolf by Night is just going to move into Asteroid M and Nidavellir is lost. This was a big miscalculation here from Bear. Oh, the Werewolf... Wait, why did the Misery not move? Why did the Misery not move? Hold on, I gotta go back here. I was doing live commentary, but I gotta see why this Ghost Spider... Oh, the Ghost Spider tried to pull the Demon. The Ghost Spider wasn't on the Misery. That must be what it was, right? Demon was the last card played last turn. I forgot about that. They had to play Misery first and then the Demon for the Frigga of it all. But yeah, this just went south fast here for Bear. Getting totally demolished by that Juggernaut and then not coming up with a good final turn play. I mean, they could have gotten some cards into Nidavellir potentially with that Ghost Spider pulling some things around, but the Juggernaut and then losing Asteroid M I think was pretty disastrous there for Bear. So Roy is going to take 7 cubes and a huge footing back in the match for the start of the Grand Finals. As a reminder, these players are going to be playing 3 matches. They are allowed to change their decks in between matches. And this is like kind of a spoiler, but I'm not spoiled. I do not know who wins these matches. All I know is that Bear plays this same deck for all 3 matches because I asked the players to send me their decks and I was looking to make sure all of the clips worked. I guess I did just spoil something. They are going to be playing 3 matches, so that kind of spoils match number 2, unfortunately. But you're going to be able to see that by the runtime of the video anyways, and that just means there's some exciting Marvel Snap to stay tuned for. Right now, predictions, Roy wins this one, Bear wins the next one, and then we go into match number 3. But I'm not sure. This could really go either way if Bear's deck seems like it's been better in most of these games. It's really just about Roy finding a good time to place that Juggernaut. Ooh, this is nice. Juggernaut to knock Roy out of Hala, destroying Invisible Woman first steps. Stardust is going to get. Roy had to play Juggernaut this turn, but Juggernaut showing just how flexible it is at winning Hala here and taking down Invisible Woman first steps. Now, I will say, as much as Roy's deck is an Invisible Woman first steps deck, it's also like not that, and it doesn't really matter if they lose that. Bear also playing into Vibranium Mines here. They would rather fill their deck with Vibranium than fill their hand with Sentinels and not be able to grab a pair of demons from the hood here. So this makes sense to me. They will have... Oh, they actually aren't even drawing a card next turn. They are just going to have these 2 demons, and so their final play of the game will be like 2 demons, Quinjet. I guess it's 2 demons plus Merlin and Mirage. That's just the play. Yeah, no other way around it. Will Bear be able to take over this game with a pair of demons? I do think so. I do think they're going to be able to find a win here. Roy would have to commit a lot in order to making that thing first steps get online. And it feels like these demons are just way too cheap and flexible in terms of allowing Bear. They are going to need a little bit more points in Vibranium Mines, though, because Roy technically has 16 points there right now. So that's interesting. Yeah, I feel like you probably just avoid Hala, full send for Vibranium Mines, just drop both of your demons there, plus a Merlin, and then throw Mirage over into Orcus Forge. I think that's what I'd do here, but maybe we will see an interesting Ghost Spider maneuver out of Roy to close out this match. I don't know for certain that Roy wins this match. I'm just kind of assuming based off Bear's remaining cubes. They are going to fill Vibranium Mines, and it all comes down to what's in Orcus Forge. 1 card? I don't think it matters what that 1 card is. I don't think that 1 card will ever beat a demon. So I think that Bear has won this game. Oh, Juggernaut! Juggernaut is 1 card that can beat a demon. The demon moves into Vibranium Mines, but the thing is going to take out the Mirage to make that location a win. And Roy is victorious in match 1. I'm doing a giveaway for PAX bundles. Stick around till the end of the video to find out how you can win. For match 2, we can see that Bear is playing the exact same 12-card Victoria hand deck list. Roy is playing something totally different though. Players were allowed to change their deck lists in between these matches. Like I said, Bear is going to be playing Victoria Hand for all 3 matches, but Roy is playing a different deck for each of these matches here, and for this one, I'm not sure if I should spoil it. I've already spoiled a lot that Bear is basically going to win this match, so maybe I'll leave Roy's deck list off the screen here for just a moment, and you can see when you might have figured it out, but I am actually already a little bit spoiled for this match as well, so that might affect my commentary a little bit. I just forgot to record and was talking for 5 minutes to no one, but I digress. We have got a pair of Victoria hands here for Bear, and with a pair of cards for Roy, you might be able to recognize that Roy is playing Cerebro 2. And for a Cerebro 2 match, Bear really has 2 main pieces of interaction, in addition to whatever randomness Iron Patriot can pull. Shadow King, not going to be super useful. What will be useful is Merlin and Nico Minoru to potentially try to change these locations from Roy. Black Vortex, already a location that Roy cannot really play to, so they're going to have to storm or limbo that location. And if they limbo it and they're counting on that 7th turn of the game, then Merlin's, what is it called? Omniversal Presence, right? Yeah. Omniversal Presence could change that location into something else. The hood changes into null, unfortunately, before magic comes down, changing that location into limbo. So this is actually not looking that good for Bear. They would have rathered the null be the hood still, and then they could misery it and set up for a bunch of demons on the final turn. But now they have like Nico to grab a copy of like Misery or something, I guess, or yeah, the demon makes more sense. Juggernaut, unfortunately, cannot get played into Mojo World because of Goose. So that's going to lock down some potential plays here as well. And then Nico recopied on Misery. Yeah, none of this seems particularly great here for Bear, and a snap comes down from Roy. That is going to be a retreat immediately. Now, that was a pretty bold snap, and I want to draw some attention to that because with Nico, I mean, potentially in hand, but more so the Merlin that was in play, Bear could have had an Omniversal Presence to change Limbo and make that a 6-turn game. Roy was basically saying, okay, I saw one of your spells already. I don't think you have an Omniversal Presence to play on this final turn. And maybe Roy was playing around it as well. Maybe they had played Cerebro and Mystique that turn regardless, so they were kind of covered on all bases. The null coming out there for Black Vortex was really quite terrible. And here with Tinker's Workshop, this would have been better had I not already watched this and was spoiled for it, but I predicted this the first time that I watched this game. A storm from Tinker's Workshop using that extra energy on the Hood's location is a really good play here from Roy because it's going to turn off the possibility of now a Misery into Hood on turn 4. So that's really going to limit the options there for Bear. And with that, Roy puts out a snap, and this is a tricky spot to be because Kunlun is fantastic for Werewolf by Night, but I think that Roy's going to win the flooded location, and so it's a great snap here from Roy. They've won the flooded location. Bear would have to win the other 2 and just doesn't think he's got it in him. So Bear is going to retreat, and pretty great cube management here from Bear to have lost the first 2 games for just 1 cube each. Not feeling too bad about that, and again, we're like kind of spoiled. We know that Bear is going to win this match. I probably shouldn't have even drawn attention to that, to be totally honest, but I'd already said it. The bag is open, cat's out of the bag, and Bear is going to be winning this match. So it's just a matter of how is he going to do it and kind of working out the puzzle pieces from there. And then for the final match, I'm not spoiled. I've got no clue who wins. And honestly, I don't even remember what deck Roy is going to play for that final match. We are going to see Mirage grab a Nico Minoru. That is actually a pretty cool one because it could bring more copies of a potential future Vicky hand. And now both Nikos are on change the location mode. That is actually a little bit tricky because now it means that, yeah, this Limbo is just going to make a turn 7 happen this game. And I feel like that probably favors Roy. These other locations also are not that bad. Maybe Bear just had to play a bunch of Nikos last turn just to change up the locations, add some randomness, add some spice, and hope that with that, Roy would not be able to play to any of these locations. We're going to see a snap come out from Roy. I do think we will see a retreat come out from Bear. They're just going to be moving around their werewolf, making some hoods and some demons. But I would be pretty surprised if Bear decides to stay in it. They have not hit the end turn button. So having a think here. But without Vicky hand and without great locations, I think Roy is set to outpace Bear, but Bear is going to stick with it. with that, what is the play here from Roy into Star Brand Crater? Roy can also do a really, really tricky thing. Oh, okay. That is what I was thinking, yeah. It looked like they were potentially setting up to play Storm this turn, considering they were playing into Star Brand Crater. And storming your own Limbo is a really, really tricky, cute thing that this deck can do. Juggernaut is going to allow Bear to win this flooded location, so that's good. If we see a Brood come into the flooded location for Roy, though, they will still maintain the ability to win this location later. And Brood is the best possible card to play here because the location is about to be flooded. So let's see. I mean, could be Mr. Sinister as well. That would be a little bit trickier, but still probably catchable with a Cerebro plus a Mystique, pumping up the Sinister clone in the Nico Minoru. We are going to see... yeah, okay, so it's Mr. Sinister plus probably like a Lasher or something here. Ravona. Okay, sure, Ravona. We will see a temporary lead in the flooded location. Oh no, a temporary lead after those other cards are kicked out. Werewolf jumps into the location, but it won't really be there. There's really only 8 points in the flooded location, and the Cerebro will allow Roy to take the lead there, if they have it. They drew 2 cards off Nico Minoru. Have to imagine they probably have found their Cerebro. Werewolf by Night just needs to win, well, kind of needs to win both of these other 2 locations. What is that? Oh, okay. Weird. A weird little end of turn check. I am not sure what this is. This like keeping your cards secret from Bear? I think this is Bear saying, like, I don't want to show you anything. Show me a little bit more of your deck, and then I'm going to retreat next turn. Oh, no, that's not what we're seeing. We are seeing Bear say, I already have everything that I want to play and fill up these other locations next turn. I don't know if I want to move my Werewolf yet. That's what we are seeing here from Bear. Wow, okay, this will be really, really impressive then if Bear is able to take this. And I suppose it just comes down to, does Roy have the Cerebro? We might see just a huge battle for Limbo as well. Shadow King going to shrink the Nico Minoru while not shrinking anything there for Roy, so I don't love that. 0 cards in Roy's deck, great thing to check. They have drawn their whole deck. When you Nico Minoru in a Limbo game, you're going to have access to every single card that you want. Bear is just counting the points. Oh, they want to turn the Shadow King into a demon, and they're trying to see, can that compete with 24 points from Roy having Cerebro plus Mystique? It cannot. That was what Bear was angling for, trying to keep Werewolf by Night into the flooded location, but there just weren't enough points to go around without access to that Werewolf by Night in one of the other 2 locations. So that is going to be a pretty sizable cube lead here from Roy. Bear down to 6 cubes and going to have to mount a pretty nice comeback, but this looks like the start of a pretty nice comeback here. Vicky Hand. And speaking of comeback, there is actually a tech issue, and the players had to restart. So now we are going to see a much, much worse hand from Bear. Though they do still have the Vicky Hand. Let's see if they find the Frigga. They don't have the Quinjet or the Hood, though. So it's certainly worse, though. Merlin, possibly one of the best cards in this matchup. Location control is how you can really attack Cerebro too, but they do have a decent amount of location control themselves. We can see Mirage or an Iron Patriot. Bear going to go with the Mirage as their initial card generation. Grabbing a Lasher with extra point. Oh, maybe you want Mr. Sinister with an extra 2 power for a 2/8. That's pretty good. Lasher, also a 2/8, though it can be countered by Luke Cage, so not as exciting. We're going to see that Mirage come down into the icebox, grabbing Shadow King. Not super useful. That is really not useful at all. It's just a 2/2, doesn't get the bonus from Mirage. What are we going to see Bear round this out with? Nico Minoru destroying Iron Patriot, aiming to next turn play Victoria Hand plus Frigga. That's the idea here, and hoping that with those extra cards, we can do that with that extra energy, I mean, from the once and future. But Storm is going to take out Dream Dimension, so that is going to allow Bear to spend 7 energy next turn and try to battle for this flooded location. They don't find the Frigga, though, so this is not looking great for Bear yet again. Battling for the flooded location, they do have Juggernaut, and I guess just Juggernaut would win it, because that's going to leave Bear with that's going to leave Roy with very few options to play on the final turn, because all of those cards are going to get Juggernauted into that center location. And then that would have left Roy with not much room to play. And that means we are now into high stakes mode in round 5. And we're going to see a Merlin come down on turn 2 for Bear. Lake Hellas could pump up Nico, but otherwise is not really a problem for Roy. It is a problem in that the demons from the hood can get pumped up at that location, so that could be a little bit awkward for Roy to have to deal with. A little bit of connection issues. Hopefully those are mostly sorted out, but yeah. Super thankful for Bear for recording their perspective and sending that to me so that we can provide coverage of the finals of the Snap Wars League here. Storm is going to turn off Lake Hellas, and we have the Vault. So this turn we've got a location flooding out. Next turn we've got the Vault closing. That is really going to potentially close the door here for Bear, but with access to Juggernaut, maybe it's just all right. They are going to actually Omniversal Presence the flooded location after moving Werewolf around a little bit. Yeah, I guess we're going to be all right. We see a snap come down from Roy, but a Nico into Rocket Pad is a really, really cool maneuver because it will get +1 points from, potentially just eyeing up a Juggernaut, but then, I don't know, that's a little risky. This is a little bit risky. We are actually going to see Bear just say, sure, let's lock down all of the locations. I'm not going to use my Omniversal Presence. I don't know. I liked the other play a little bit better. Yeah, let's do this one. And Nico is cool here because it will get +1 points from Rocket Pad and then double up next turn. Decided not to play it because they want the Werewolf to potentially be in the flooded location, or they want to be able to move the Werewolf. I'm not totally sure what the angle is right there, but the flooded location is gone. Sewer system is going to mean that Roy needs to have a Luke Cage. He does, and Rocket Pad is going to put a few more points over into that location. Werewolf also could have gotten more points, and yeah, I'm a little curious. I guess they didn't want to use the Nico. They wanted access to the Nico's location change maybe, or maybe even the double your card. I'm not sure exactly what the angle was, but this turn, Juggernaut is going to come down into the Vault. That will win that location for Bear 100% of the time with priority, and then Bear just has to move Werewolf by Night into Rocket Pad. They're trying to snap again. Oh no, they can snap. We are in high stakes mode, so they can snap to make this a 6-cube game. Will Roy allow for this snap? I forgot that Bear had stolen a cube in round 4. So Roy accepts this snap, and this Juggernaut, I mean, you can't always retreat to a potential Juggernaut, but this Juggernaut is going to win the Vault, and I do believe that this Werewolf by Night is going to be able to win Rocket Pad. This could get really awkward if this is a Brood. No, this is a Nico. Is this a Brood? Okay, it's a Brood, but it's a Brood that we have access to again with Nico giving you another copy. So we could see like Brood plus Cerebro. How many points is that? 15? No, not going to be good enough. Hobgoblin will stop it. I actually think Hobgoblin is a little risky here. I mean, it's a lot of points, but I don't know. Hobgoblin seems pretty risky. I think the only way that you can lose this game is if you play Hobgoblin and your opponent fills up Rocket Pad and then plays like Cerebro and something else. But not going to happen. We are going to see that this Hobgoblin will travel over, and I have to imagine that this is just Brood plus Cerebro here from Roy. Roy unable to retreat. Ooh, Shadow King plus Cerebro. Fantastic play there from Roy, but Hobgoblin is actually going to do Roy in there because they just have too many negative points. So, yeah, I guess they actually... Well, they didn't really need the Hobgoblin. They would have beat Shadow King plus Cerebro regardless, but it didn't backfire, and Bear finally takes a cube lead, I believe for the first time in this match, now up 6 cubes to Roy's 3 for match number 2. We've got Pit of Exile as location number 1. Not going to be a factor for either player. I don't think Pit of Exile stops cards that are being pumped up by Victoria Hand either. I think Pit of Exile is just a blank location in this match. Gamma Lab is not a blank location. It is basically a free location 1 here for Bear, and Juggernaut plus a location that you've already won. I feel like Bear is looking to snap, and honestly, I was not putting enough respect on just the ability of Bear to play Juggernaut after winning one other location, or using Juggernaut to make your opponent lose the game by throwing some of their cards into a location where they're not allowed to be, like Monster Metropolis or something at this point. Bear is going to accept that snap him back, and I think we're going to see Bear play the Hood next turn plus whatever they draw, and then turn 5 looking for Misery plus a Demon, finishing off with a Demon. Oh, magic is fantastic there for Roy. No Hulks for you. You are going to play a 7-turn game. You're going to play my game now, and that makes 3 reasonable locations for Roy because Bear is deciding to play the Hood into that Monster Metropolis. Roy will be able to play cards there. There's a little bit of an interesting thing with Monster Metropolis where you almost want to let a Cerebro opponent win that location, because if they play a single card there, then get the Monster Metropolis bonus, then they won't get the Cerebro bonus in either of the other 2 locations. So it can be a nice trick baiting your opponent into winning a bad location. But now that we see Bear is going to play Misery there, probably next turn, that will open the door then for Roy to be able to access that location. I do think, yeah, next turn, Demon plus Misery is a fairly straightforward maneuver, but Merlin off the top has got to be tempting for the ability to make this a 6-turn game again. Wow, that is what we were going to go with. We are going to go with Merlin plus Pass. That way Bear can decide where he wants this Demon to go next turn. Once in future is not an Omniversal Presence. I do think we'll want to play the Misery now this turn into the Hood, so I guess there's no risk. Doing this gave Bear the ability to potentially end the game on turn 6 and potentially scare Roy into the idea that the game is over this turn. We might see a Cerebro come down and a Lasher activate here from Roy, as they might be afraid of a final turn of the game coming right now. And then Bear just gets to set up. There's some really nice mind games with Merlin and Limbo. Merlin only has a 1 in 3 shot to find the Omniversal Presence, only being around 1 turn here, so Roy might again just decide to ignore it like he did in, I believe, the first game. And let's see, what is the play here? Once and Future plus a Misery is going to make for a really spectacular final turn for Bear. But what is Roy doing? Playing into Monster Metropolis could be the Cerebro. I don't think so, though. I think that Roy has played some real cards here. It's Mr. Sinister, I think, plus Nico and Cerebro, and then an activation of Lasher. We are going to see the Mystique come out as well because Ravona is making those cards cheaper. Wow. Wow, okay, and then we do see Lasher activate, but will Roy be able to come back? They can polymorph that Quinjet, or potentially once in future they find the polymorph. That is an easy target onto that Quinjet. I don't know that Bear's going to be able to find a win here, though. This looks like a lot of points for Roy. Now, Roy is basically tapped out. So it's up to Bear to say, can I beat this? Because Roy has done everything that Roy is going to do. So it's all about what Bear can come up with here. A polymorph on the Quinjet. Plus we're going to move this Werewolf by Night around a little bit. Demon could potentially win Monster Metropolis. Can Misery win Monster Metropolis? Misery is 12 plus 3 from Merlin. That's 15. No. You need to put more points there. Mystique will put you up to 18. That will win it. That will win 18 to 17. So Mystique looks pretty good, actually. Any card looks pretty good. We're going to bounce the Werewolf there, and then we're going to bounce the Werewolf back center before allowing it to finish off in Pit of Exile. Shadow King takes out the Werewolf by Night. That might actually just be all she wrote. We do have a win in Monster Metropolis for Bear, but not being able to count on these Werewolf points, I think, means Roy is about to tie it up. Frigga is just here to pump up this Werewolf a little bit before it eventually finds its final home in the Pit of Exile. Not allowed to play big cards there. Werewolf can move in there, though, of course, but it is not big enough after the Shadow King has shrunk it down. I was trying to do the math, but it was a little complicated there. So I just waited to see it play out, and that means that these players are tied up in round 6 or so of high stakes mode. Olympia coming down as location number 1 to fill up both of these players' hands. I'm gonna say that's good for Roy because they are a single card combo deck, whereas Bear's deck can be a little bit more flexible with the Frigga and Victoria Hand not necessarily being relevant, but, not necessarily being required. I was getting distracted by the fact that Bear has access to Victoria Hand Frigga, though, which Olympia's added consistency is going to allow for, and that's pretty good. That is still pretty good. We are going to see a fairly normal curve here, or standard curve that we've seen from Bear, I believe, of next turn playing maybe Merlin plus Victoria Hand, and then Misery on Frigga onto that Asgard turn. No, you can't. You can't play Misery onto Frigga because you're playing Frigga into the Goose location. So Bear opting to not go for that familiar game plan in this one, instead potentially opting, Storm is going to change Asgard into the flooded location this turn anyways, and we see Nico Minoru to copy Victoria Hand. That is fantastic here. We actually could see the Victoria Hand. I kind of like a different play. I kind of like Victoria Hand in Olympia, so that way you can Misery the Nico down the line. But I think Roy is going to win the flooded location here. Yeah, with the Cerebro, that's not going to be interactable, and that location is now closed. Bear has no way to get back in there. Again, apologies for the flickering on the screen, but yeah, we're still getting to watch some sweet Marvel Snap. So network connections be damned. We'll see how these players... Crimson Cosmos. Roy has no way to access Crimson Cosmos. That's why Bear played for Olympia. Olympia is the only location that matters this game. Roy is going to fairly easily be able to put another 20 points there. Oh, but Juggernaut. No, that's all she wrote. This is... No, wait, Juggernaut does not win it. Juggernaut does not win it. Because if you win Olympia with Juggernaut, then you lose Crimson Cosmos. So this is going to be another 11 points here from Vicky Hand, and then 6 more points on top of that. So that is 6 plus 11, 17 plus the 7 that's there, 24 should beat Roy's output of 20. So Roy retreats, hanging on to one final cube. Not one final cube, we still have one final match to play. Wow, I'm gonna take a look. I might find my water bottle before we take a look at this final match, but there is going to be, what an incredible bait that would be if I kept talking about how this video was 3 rounds long, and then I had like a big spoiler shield so you didn't know how long the video was going to be, and now Roy just wins this and wins the whole grand finals. Maybe I did that. Maybe I did that. You never know. Tinker's Workshop going to show up again on turn 2. Feels fairly reasonable for Roy, though a storm is a really tricky location in a great web game, so we might see Storm come down to turn off that location. No, it's going to be a Luke Cage over in that location instead, and location number 3 is going to be a mini lab that has already closed for business. Frigga plus Victoria hand is in hand here for Bear. Omniversal Presence feels pretty good. We're going to Nico, then Vicky, so that way we get to pick up a 5-point Vicky with Frigga next turn. Looks good. Leave some room in the web so that way at least one created card can go there. Hopefully, the web is going to fill up pretty quickly because Roy is only playing to the web, so Bear's going to have a card drift into the web every single turn. Yeah, you have to play to Tink, and then once and future on the Nico will give access to a lot of energy next turn. Are we going to see a Storm finally or a Limbo here for Roy, or is this simply a Brood? I don't know. No, you wouldn't play Brood here. You would play Brood into Tinker's Workshop. This is indeed a Storm, and Roy is looking pretty good in the Great Web. Oh, but Omniversal Presence. Omniversal Presence to flip that location could make this a pretty nice win here for Bear. Plus the Hood, and then a Once in Future, and an Iron Patriot. A lot of cards coming out here into the limited space here for Bear. Next turn, the Mini Lab is going to open up. Are we going to see a Limbo into Tinker's Workshop this turn? It's kind of like a magic trick, literally a magic trick. Look at one hand while I distract you with the other. You're changing the flooded location. Now you're down 1 Omniversal Presence for Limbo, or this could just be a Brood into Tinker's Workshop. The Brood's so good into Mini Lab, so I'm curious what we will see here for Roy's play this turn. It is Nico Minoru destroying the probably Brood. Oh no, destroying Magic. Wow, so Roy is going to see their entire deck this game. I think Roy's going to win this. Maybe I lied to you. Maybe Roy will take this entire series right here. Omniversal Presence, though, off the top for Bear from Merlin, taking away Limbo. I think Roy will play around it. I think Roy is happy enough to have drawn those 2 cards. They've probably found Cerebro. Roy has 1 card left in their deck, though, at this point. And now Bear just has to figure out what's the most points I can put onto this dang board. I'm going to play my Vicky. I'm going to play Claw plus Demon and Nico Minoru. And all of that feels pretty dang good. We're going to let Roy have Machine World, and we're going to battle really hard for Mini Lab, but who knows? Maybe Limbo will just turn into a wacky location that loses Roy the game. Here it is, Omniversal Presence, Quantum Realm. That's not going to do it. That is a fine location for a Cerebro 2 deck, but I don't think Roy is going to be fine unless this is Brood plus Cerebro. That actually still won't win it. There are just too many points on the board, and it is Brood plus Cerebro, but unfortunately 15 is not going to beat 32. Roy would have had to play both of those cards into the Quantum Realm. Could have been a reasonable play. Could have been a potential play that Roy actually makes there, is what I mean by that. But instead, Bear is going to clinch game number 2, and we move into the final game of the finals of this season. Both players have been battling it out all season long in the Swiss portion. They have advanced into the finals through the postseason playoff, and both have won a match to get us to this point. Bear sticking with his Victoria hand. We can already see what Roy is playing here. At the very least, it is a Quicksilver deck. I'll reveal the rest of the list to you right here, though. They are playing Wiccan with Galactus First Steps, and this is a Quicksilver Domino brand of Wiccan. Roy has already won in Castle Blackstone. That could allow for a turn 3 Wiccan. And Altar of Death already has a Quicksilver in it. Now, Altar of Death actually could make this game go in a number of different ways, but I think if you're Roy, no matter what there, you just snap and your opponent has to retreat because you are so obviously representing the ability to play a turn 3 Wiccan. And even in an Altar of Death game, it's probably not something that either player wants to deal with. Now, Asgard Besieged, will we see Roy just drop the Quicksilver and Domino into that location and just battle? We're going to see potentially a pretty good use of Domino throughout both of these two first games here. All right, not going to commit the Quicksilver. They're actually going to choose to destroy their Quicksilver as they battle for Asgard Besieged here. Where is this Titania coming from in Bear's hand? Bear has changed their list. Bear has added in a Titania and cut a Shadow King as a last-minute tech swap to deal with a Cerebro 2 deck. Okay. That is really, really cute and clever. Red Guardian takes out Victoria Hand. I was paying attention to the Titania. I don't know which player snapped, but Roy is looking fantastic here as they not only get the Destroyer, destroying their Quicksilver and taking over Asgard Besieged, but they demolish Bear's hopes for winning this game with that Red Guardian onto Vicky Hand. It is not looking good. Bear can junk out Asgard Besieged with this Titania. That doesn't really seem that great. Copycat seems great. Copycat on a Misery. Yeah, that seems like a reasonable card here for Roy. Bear is going to use it to grab another card from Mirage and keep going. But Legion is going to lock Bear out of the game. Wow, Roy has just had it all so far in this match. Let's see how it continues. Juggernaut could be a card here, but no, it cannot be. Even if you play Juggernaut to win the Center Crimson Cosmos, you are always losing those other two locations that you have already lost. So, Roy is now up 3 cubes in the final match of the finals, playing 3 totally different decks for the most part. 2 decks featuring Stardust, but that's really like the only overlap. 2 Stardust Mobius package decks, but this one definitely a lot different from the first and looking good. A good showing for this deck so far with Wiccan and Galactus First Steps, and then Magneto is an interesting endgame card. We are going to see the first Galactus game here. Quicksilver gets played into the unknown location, and Bear has a Cosmic Ghost Rider from Roy, meaning that Galactus was drawn on turn 2? No, this is turn 2. Galactus was just drawn after the White Palace trigger. That's interesting. I guess Galactus was drawn as the first card of first turn, but it wasn't actually in hand before that. I didn't realize that that was how White Palace worked, if it was the first location, or actually, regardless of which location it was, that it happened before the card draw for turn. Makes sense. So now we see a little bit more junk added to Bear's hand. It's interesting because they are a Vicky hand deck, but it feels like their hand is just clogged up with a bunch of stuff that they're not going to care about. Jean Grey is going to come down into White Palace. That is the pickup from Roy. And will they have a turn for Wiccan into the White Palace as well with ya? We're going to see a pair of the hoods potentially. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't love it. We could see Nico copying Wolfsbane. That would actually be kind of cute, but it would mean then that you have to lock yourself out of the White Palace. But it could be an all right play. Ooh, Captain Marvel plus Wolfsbane Also kind of tricky, but no matter what, you lock yourself out of the White Palace, so it is a little bit tough. Oh, you don't lock yourself out of the White Palace. I actually like Nico plus Wolfsbane into White Palace again. Reason being, you can move Werewolf by Night out of that location to then be able to access it. Now, this play is also good, just multiple copies of Captain Marvel, which can then move around and they're just 1/5s, which are good. That's potentially why Titania is good as well. Just a 1/5 might be what you are angling for sometimes. And we do see that Bear was able to battle up against the Galactus first steps this game. I'm not really sure what to think about this game so far. Both players playing a bunch of weird created cards. Jean Grey is not really something you see super often. And a bunch of Captain Marvels, I will say. Multiple Captain Marvels might not have the desired effect Bear is looking for, because each one is going to separately look and see if it can win before deciding if it will move. And that could make for an unsurprising result, but we are not going to get to see that. We are just going to see a retreat from Roy after a snap from Bear. And I'm going to have another swig of water here as we move into round 4. Vicky plus Frigga. Pretty Frigga good. Let's see if Bear decides to snap and when. Both players mostly being pretty cheeky. I feel like the first match had like a 7-cube game. I don't remember if the second match had a 6-cube game at some point. It might have. It's been a long match. Thank you for watching. If you are still watching, I appreciate it. And this is, I mean, like super, super high stakes Marvel Snap. We've got the Golden Gauntlet coming up in about a week. Ooh, an attempt to lock out with Titania there is really curious. Now the Frigga, or the Victoria hand's going to come down. They just wanted to play something alongside that Nico Minoru, so decided to play the Titania. Roy's getting his first look at that Titania in the match. A pretty cheeky card. We see a snap from Bear with the idea that now they're going to have access to 3 Vicky hands at the very least this game. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Next turn, Frigga plus Vicky hand, because Vicky will only cost 1. So it's a 1/7 that they're picking up. Never mind. Mobius comes down just in time. Every time I'm about to talk about Vicky hand being a 1-cost card, the Mobius comes down from Roy to make it a 2/7. You know, it's fine. A 2/9 even. So still pretty fantastic. Bear thinking about playing Vicky alongside Merlin. Could play it alongside Mirage too. Interestingly, Mirage not at its best in this matchup. We saw last game it copied a Copycat. That's the cheapest card, is a 3-cost card in Roy's deck. So kind of curious. Ooh, and players getting tricky here with Asteroid M and Titania. Roy is able to play Wiccan into the sewer system to take the Titania back. Interestingly, Bear could pull off a similar maneuver here. They're going to go for a polymorph onto Nico Minoru plus a Frigga to grab that second copy of Victoria hand. That'll be a 2/9. And then that can get played on the final turn alongside a Misery, maybe. Might want to just play a Mirage alongside the Frigga this turn. That way you grab a 3-cost card from your opponent, and that's something cool to play. Certainly you want to play the Frigga. No, opting to not play the Frigga. Wow, just going for Werewolf plus Mirage here. Interesting. I think that Bear is afraid they are just going to lose Asteroid M if they just play Frigga this turn. And then they're afraid that they're going to be able to lose another location to Galactus first steps. So they are just going to straight up retreat. I guess Roy had snapped that turn. I don't even know if I really realized that Roy had snapped there. I got a little bit distracted while that game was going on. But now we move into high stakes mode, and it's impossible not to notice the huge cube lead that Roy has right now. 9 cubes to Bear's 5. And again, we see a Galactus first steps on turn 1 from Roy. That's going to be really big. And what I was getting at is if Roy was able to win Asteroid M, this could look like a fairly similar game potentially. Winning Asteroid M means that Roy just has to drop down that Galactus, and it's basically uncontestable points if Roy is just able to run around the entire game with it. Tarnax is kind of interesting here. Ooh, could we see Nico plus Bruce Banner or something interesting as well? Nico plus the Hood. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, and then follow that up with a Quinjet. This is a reasonable battle for Iron Patriot, but it doesn't matter. The Iron Patriot battle doesn't even matter because once again, Mobius will come down and just say, nah, you got a 6/8 in your hand and you're going to like it. Now, the Bruce Banner could be powerful, but if Bear is skipping energy on all of his turns, he's going to have a tough time finding a win here as well. This Galactus first steps can't come down into Tarnax though, so maybe Bear does have an edge in that location. Merlin plus Victoria Hand going to come out here. Quinjet, again, also doing nothing. Merlin or Mobius really showing why it is so good. Stardust gets played into Tarnax, which means it is going to turn into a Stegron instead after moving over into Asteroid M. So yeah, I don't think that Stardust does anything in this match. We do get to see Frigga pick up a second copy of Vicky Hand. We are also going to see Asteroid M go away. That was a problem location last game. And we're going to see Bear pick up an additional copy here of Vicky Hand. What is the play here from Roy into Tarnax? Could this be a Cosmic Ghost Rider? Oh, it could be a Legion. That could be something spicy, but then they can't play Galactus. But it is a Legion. All right, it's a Tarnax game. This is just going to be random. Final turn, any card that gets played in any location will get changed into a card of the same cost. Juggernaut probably wins in Tarnax, and then Bruce Banner, I don't know, it at least makes a play for it. This is a wacky game. Are the players going to put it all on the line here? Yep, we're going to see the domino emote. Bear thinks about snapping as well. Honestly, I don't hate Bear's position in this game right now. Juggernaut will probably win the rightmost location, and Roy is actually not going to play it out. Bear is going to grab the 2 cubes there from it being high stakes mode, and it's so funny how these small cube changes can really just, now the game feels even. The game felt like unapproachable for a second there from Bear, and now it's 7-5. That is totally catch-upable here for Bear. They're going to send the Hood over with Castle Zemo. Don't even need the Titania to make a card switch sides for your opponent. And Roy is, of course, going to trigger Castle Zemo with that Quicksilver. It's one of like the best uses of Quicksilver is to just trigger a Vormir or a Castle Zemo on turn 1. Oscorp Tower is location number 2. A lot of cards switching sides here. Misery as a draw from Bear makes it a bit of a bummer that they have sent over the Hood, but that Hood still represents 9 points. So, pretty good, I think, all in all. Nico Minoru is going to be able to create another demon here, and Domino comes down into what is now the sewer system. Mirage can turn into a demon, or Iron Patriot can turn into a demon as it really then is able to battle for whatever location it is played to. We're going to see Mirage come down into Castle Zemo. No, Werewolf by Night? No, this is going to be an Iron Patriot sewer system. Do we see a Mobius here from Roy to keep this Fanfare in Bear's hand? No, it's going to be a Red Guardian as they battle for a bit of points into Castle Zemo. Now they're winning. Now Roy is winning Oscorp Tower, but just barely. A pretty big loss in sewer system. Now from Bear, we have Werewolf by Night plus Quinjet, but it kind of feels like Bear's running out of steam without Victoria Hand. Ooh, and a Mobius there from Roy to strand the Fanfei in Bear's hand as a 4-cost card. There are not any good plays here for Bear, other than probably the retreat button pretty soon. Misery can make the Werewolf by Night move around. I guess that's something, and it's 9 points, so that is going to be the play here. And I guess Bear does have a lead in all 3 locations, which is really good in a Legion game. I think Roy's out of options there as well, because, yeah, I mean, now Bear just has to play Juggernaut plus something into Castle Zemo, Juggernaut plus Merlin, probably, and they're battling for all 3 locations. I guess that actually does carry a little bit of risk, because you could Juggernaut a card into a location that it then wins, but I don't think that's really something that Bear has to worry about right now. I think that they've got this one, and I think that they have tied this match up 5 cubes apiece. Oh, this is tricky. Juggernaut knocks your opponent out of Castle Zemo, but it could actually be disastrous, and then your opponent gets the Juggernaut. You still win the location, but it could actually turn out to be quite terrible. We're looking at Merlin plus Fanfei over in Castle Zemo. Sure, it puts a few more points there. It will mean... I don't see how Roy wins this game, to be honest. I think Roy's just going to retreat. What's in Roy's deck even? Copycat? No, there's nothing. Ooh, wow, I just saw it. I don't think it works. It does. Magneto into the leftmost location. 18 points. Okay. Roy actually could have won that game with a Magneto into the left location. They would have 18 points, but the Fanfei getting pulled over would have actually lost them that location, but it would have been like pretty dang close. So yeah, interesting that there was still a potential for a win there. We're going to see the Hood come down center. I don't know how much Roy will battle for Eternity range. Yeah, just throw the Quicksilver over into the right location, especially if you have the Galactus first steps. Just say, sure, I'll take a rock, but I will also take a huge Galactus. I think Iron Patriot will come down into Eternity range, though. Oh, Merlin into Eternity range. That's also fine. Bear is going to give Roy the rock, but Roy is going to take a huge Galactus domino to follow up on that Quicksilver. Will we see another Wiccan game? That is my question. If Roy gets another Wiccan game, they just haven't drawn Wiccan this whole time, other than like the first game, I think, then they could start to take the lead here. But otherwise, I mean, Bear is mounting a bit of a comeback. Let's see how far that momentum carries them. I do think that you have to retreat off this one. Sakaar is just so much better for Roy. It's not even funny. They're playing 5-cost cards and 6-cost cards, and your curve stops at 4. So we are just going to see a huge card come down here into Sakaar. Probably could just be a Wiccan. Red Guardian is going to turn off Merlin. Iron Patriot is going to meet maybe a Legion. Yeah, okay. Legion will not create more cards out of Sakaar. So we are kind of done, but we could also see a Wiccan come down from Roy, and this is a huge game for a huge amount of points. We actually see Bear with a really interesting line to contest Sakaar with Shuri into Misery. We could see that into the center Sakaar as well. But this plan would be next turn play. Yeah, okay, I like this. Now, next turn you can play Bear thinking about making this the game for the final cube. We do see the Wiccan, so I appreciate Bear not snapping there, though it would have been sweet. Now we are going to see a Misery come down, and it's actually a little bit awkward, the sequencing here. I don't know if Shuri says card or character, but... oh... Sure, that is not what I was thinking. I was thinking you would Misery the Shuri and then play a demon, but I also like Frigga to try to move these points to a different location instead. You kind of limited your options once you played or moved the Werewolf by Night into Sakaar, which I guess you always had to do. But this is cool. Grabbing another 12 power demon could potentially help Bear contest this Wiccan curve, which is just like, I mean, Stardust plus Copycat, not that impressive, but we are going to see access to 8 energy on the final turn from Roy and winning one location, but I don't know. I think Bear actually did it. Wow. Will Roy know that they have to retreat here? I think there's a chance. You know your opponent has a 12 power demon to battle for the location that they are currently losing. Juggernaut needs a little bit more points, though. Juggernaut needs to get paired up with that Quinjet. Oh no, it's going to get paired up with Werewolf by Night. I'd rather see it paired up with Quinjet. That would be exactly 14 to give you the lead in Sakaar rather than having your Werewolf move out. And then you have like 29 points over in the left location. Sorry, I was calling it Sakaar. But yeah, I think the Quinjet on the right could be a little bit better, but it looks like this might be the final turn of the final match for both of these players. And this could be an important play here. We are going to see an undo Juggernaut center where there's already a little bit of a point lead, and finishing off with a Titania. Sure, why not? Your opponent has that rock, meaning they cannot steal this Titania from you. Juggernaut battle for all 3 locations still looks good to me. Titania to finish off in Sakaar is just better than Quinjet because of that rock. Coming up big, Juggernaut is going to knock the play out of Sakaar and into the center Sakaar, and I think with that, Bear has got it. Titania, Galactus comes down, plus a Titania for Roy, but that is going to be a win for Bear, taking the finals of the Snap Wars League. Congratulations to both of these players for making it this far, and huge thanks and shout outs to Bear. I know you'll be in the comments. Huge thanks to you for sending me these games so that way I could do some commentary on them and everyone could see your win in all of its glory. That is going to be it for me today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace. To enter into my giveaway, there are 3 things that you need to do. The first is subscribe to this YouTube channel. The second is leave a comment on any of my videos. This season, every comment will give you an additional entry into the giveaway. Limit 1 per video, but you can comment on all of the videos that I upload throughout this season. And the third thing that you have to do is join my Discord. And the reason that I need you to do that is so that way I can contact you if you win, because YouTube comments, you don't always get the notifications for things like that. So join my Discord, leave a comment on all of my videos, and subscribe for more Sweet Marvel Snap.